Sangaravan ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Shri Totally Jai, Maya Prasad ki Jai. Is it a special day today? I listen to Brahma today. Okay, so it's fast till noon for Varaha Day. Varahadeva ki jai. Buy me a Kalashi ki jai. So reading from the Nectar of Devotion. Sensual attraction. So this section is about spontaneous devotional service. Prabhupada started by saying there's two sections. One is sensual and the other one is by practice, isn't it? Sensuous devotional service is Raganuga Bhakti, is the gopis, sensual attraction and relationship. So who are the devotees that were spontaneous in relationship? Okay, so the Narada Muni says, there are many devotees who first become attracted to the personality of God for either sense gratification, out of being envious of him, out of fear of him, or from desire to associate affectionately with him. So these are all relationship orientated. Sensual attraction. This extreme desire to serve the Lord is manifest in the transcendental land of Braj, and it is especially manifested among the gopis. The gopis' love for Krishna is so elevated that for our understanding it is sometimes explained as being lusty desire. The author of Chaitanya Charitamrita, Kaviraj Krishna Das, has explained the distinction between lusty desire and the service attitude in this statement. Lusty desire refers to the desire to gratify one's personal senses, and transcendental desire refers to the desire for serving the senses of the Lord. In the material world, there is no such thing as a lover's wanting to please the senses of his beloved. Actually, in the material world, everyone wants mainly to gratify his own personal senses. The gopis, however, wanted nothing at all but to gratify the senses of the Lord, and there is no instance of this in the material world. Therefore, the gopis' ecstatic love for Krishna is sometimes described by scholars as being like the lusty desire of the material world, but actually this should not be taken as a literal fact. It is simply a way of trying to understand the transcendental situation. Jai Shri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Ki Jai. I'll just finish this off. Great devotees up to the standard of Uddhava are very dear friends of the Lord, and they desire to follow in the footsteps of the gopis. So the gopis' love for Krishna is certainly not material lusty desire. Otherwise, how could Uddhava aspire to follow in their footsteps? Another instance is Lord Chaitanya himself. After accepting the sannyas order of life, he was very, very strict about avoiding association with women. But still he taught that there is no better method of worshipping Krishna than that conceived by the gopis. Thus the gopis' method of worshipping the Lord, as if impelled by lusty desire, was praised by very highly, even by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This very fact means that although the attraction of the gopis for Krishna appears to be lusty, it is not in the least bit material. Unless one is fully situated in the transcendental position, the relationship of the gopis is very difficult to understand. Because it appears to be just like ordinary dealings of young boys and girls, it is sometimes misinterpreted to be like the ordinary sex of this material world. Unfortunately, persons who cannot understand the transcendental nature of the love affairs of the gopis take it for granted that Krishna's love affairs with the gopis are mundane transactions, and therefore they sometimes indulge in painting licentious pictures in some modernistic style. On the other hand, the lusty desire of Kubja is described by learned scholars as being almost lusty desire. Kubja was a hunchbacked woman who also wanted Krishna with a great ecstatic love, but her desire for Krishna was almost mundane. And so her love cannot be compared to the love of the gopis. Her loving affection for Krishna is called kama praya, or almost like the gopis' love for Krishna. And I'll just read this one. This is a relationship-orientated spontaneous devotion. In the attitude of the denizens of Vrindavan, such as Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda, is to be found the ideal transcendental concept of being the father and mother of Krishna, the original personality of Godhead. Factually, no one can become the father or mother of Krishna, but a devotee's possession of such transcendental feelings is called love of Krishna in a parental relationship. The Vrishnis, Krishna's relatives at Dwarka, also felt like that. So a spontaneous love of Krishna in the parental relationship is found both among the denizens of Dwarka, who belong to the dynasty of Vrishni, and among the inhabitants of Vrindavan. Spontaneous love of Krishna is exhibited by the Vrishnis and the denizens of Vrindavan, is eternally existing in them. In the stage of devotional service where regulative principles are followed, there is no necessity of discussing this love, for it must develop of itself at a more advanced stage. Okay, interesting. So no necessity to discuss, Srila Prabhupada saying, until we're at a more advanced stage, so that we can take it on the safe side that we haven't got that just yet, and it's something that we're working toward. And if we do, then we would keep it private, wouldn't be discussing it openly. So Prabhupada saying it's eternally existing in the Vrishnis and the denizens of Vrindavan. Denizens, what's a denizen? In other words, they are Nitya Siddha. At the same time, we're being offered to enter into Nitya Siddha. So anyway, there's no necessity of discussing it. So there's a specific, systematic, and incidental hearing. So incidental is when you're reading, and then just as you're in the process of reading Srila Prabhupada's books, he will mention something like this, and so we read it and then we go on. Whereas if you start to dwell upon it and specifically pursue it, then that would be something that would be inappropriate unless you're advanced enough. And systematic is you take the subject and then you go through all the books to find where it says that subject. Specific is more Astakaliya Leela, where you're meditating on what Krishna is doing at each time of the day. So that's when you're very advanced. As Shiv Ramash explains in Sankalpa Kamudi, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is Canto 7, Chapter 12, the perfect Society for Spiritual Classes. And we're on text, is it 26 to 28? Okay, so I'll just run through all the translations. And then the first 4 of the next chapter. Thereafter, the object of speech, along with the sense of speech, the tongue, should be bestowed upon fire. Craftsmanship and the 2 hands should be given to the demigod Indra. The power of movement and the legs should be given to Lord Vishnu. Sensual pleasure, along with the genitals, should be bestowed upon Prajapati. The rectum with the power of evacuation should be bestowed in its proper place unto Mrityu. The oral instrument, along with sound vibration, should be given to the deities presiding over the directions. The instruments of touch, along with the sense objects of touch, should be given to Vayu. Form with the power of sight should be bestowed upon the sun. The tongue, along with the demigod Varuna, should be bestowed upon water. And the power of smell, along with the 2 Ashvini Kumaras, demigods, should be bestowed upon the earth. The mind, along with all material desires, should be merged in the moon demigod. All the subject matters of intelligence, along with the intelligence itself, should be placed in Lord Brahma. False ego, which is under the influence of the material modes of nature and which induces one to think, I am this body and everything connected with this body is mine, should be merged along with material activities in Rudra, the predominating deity of false ego. Material consciousness, along with the goal of thought, should be merged in the individual living being, and the demigods acting under the modes of material nature should be merged along with the perverted living being into the supreme being. The earth should be merged in water, water in the brightness of the sun, this brightness into the air into the sky into the false ego into the total material energy, the total material energy into the unmanifested ingredients, the pradhan feature of the material energy, and at last the ingredient feature of material manifestation into the supersoul. So whatever you've got, you have to give it back. And it's explaining here who you have to give it back to. So just because we've got it right now doesn't mean it's ours. They were all given to us. The power of sight, smell, everything, all the elements that our body is made up of. When all the material designations have thus merged into their respective material elements, the living beings, who are all ultimately completely spiritual, being one in quality with the Supreme Being, should cease from material existence, as flames cease when the wood in which they are burning is consumed. When the material body is returned to its various elements, only the spiritual being remains. This spiritual being is Brahman and is equal in quality with Parabrahman. Thus, in the Bhaktivedanta purpose of the 7th canto, 12th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Perfect Society for Spiritual Classes, chapter 15, the behavior of a perfect person. The 13th chapter describes the regulative principles for sannyasis and also describes the history of an avadut. It concludes with a description of perfection for the student in spiritual advancement. Sri Narada Muni has been describing the symptoms of various ashrams and varnas. Now in this chapter, he specifically describes the regulative principles to be followed by sannyasis. After retiring from family life, one should accept the status of vanaprast, in which he must formally accept the body as his means of existence, but gradually forget the bodily necessities of life. After vanaprast life, having left home, one should travel to different places as a sannyasi. Without bodily comforts and free from dependence on anyone with respect to bodily necessities, one should travel everywhere, wearing almost nothing, or actually walking naked. Without association with ordinary human society, one should beg alms and always be satisfied in himself. One should be a friend to every living entity and be very peaceful in Krishna consciousness. A sannyasi should travel alone in this way, not caring for life or death, waiting for the time when he will leave his material body. He should not indulge in unnecessary books or adopt professions like astrology, nor should he try to become a great orator. He should also give up the path of unnecessary argument and should not depend on anyone under any circumstances. He should not try to allure people into becoming his disciples just so that the number of his disciples may increase. He should give up the habit of reading many books as a means of livelihood, and he should not attempt to increase the number of temples and mats or monasteries. When a sannyasi thus becomes completely independent, peaceful, and equipoised, he can select the destination he desires after death and follow the principles by which to reach the destination. Although fully learned, he should always remain silent like a dumb person and travel like a restless child. In this regard, Narada Muni described a meeting between Prahlad and a saintly person who had adopted the mode of life of a python. In this way, he described the symptoms of a Paramahamsa. A person who has attained the Paramahamsa stage knows very well the distinction between matter and spirit. He is not at all interested in gratifying the material senses, for he is always deriving pleasure from devotional service to the Lord. He is not very anxious to protect his material body. Being satisfied with whatever he attains by the grace of the Lord, he is completely independent of material happiness and distress, and thus he is transcendental to all regulative principles. Sometimes he accepts severe austerities, and sometimes he accepts material opulence. His only concern is to satisfy Krishna. And for that purpose, he can do anything and everything without reference to the regulative principles. He is never to be equated with materialistic men, nor is he subject to the judgments of such men. Sri Narada Muni said, a person able to cultivate spiritual knowledge should renounce all material connections, and merely keeping the body inhabitable, he should travel from place to place, passing only one night in each village. In this way, without dependence in regard to the needs of the body, the sannyasi should travel all over the world. A person in the renounced order of life may try to avoid even to dress to cover himself. If he wears anything at all, it should be only a loincloth. And when there is no necessity, a sannyasi should not even accept a danda. A sannyasi should avoid carrying anything but a danda and a kamadalu, which is what they carry water in. The sannyasi, completely satisfied in the self, should live on alms begged from door to door. Not being dependent on any person or any place, he should always be a friendly well-wisher to all living beings and be a peaceful, unalloyed devotee of Narayan. In this way, he should move from one place to another. The sannyasi should always try to see the Supreme pervading everything and see everything, including this universe, resting on the Supreme. Okay. Supti Prabodhayo Sandav. Supti Prabodhayo Sandav. Atmano Gatim Atmadrik. Atmano Gatim Atmadrik. Bhajan Bandham Cha Moksham Cha. Bhajan Bandham Cha Moksham Cha. Maya Matram Na Vastuta. Maya Matram Na Vastuta. Supti Prabodhayo Sanda. Atmano Gatim Atmadrik. Bhajan Bandam Chamoksham Cha. Maya Matram Navastuta. Pradanayo Handa. Atmano Gatim Atmadrik. Supti, in the state of unconsciousness, Prabodhayo, and in the state of consciousness, Sando, in the state of marginal existence, Atmana, of oneself, Gatim, the movement, Atmadrik, one who can actually see the self, Pajyan, always trying to see or understand, Bandham, the conditional state of life, Cha, and Moksham, the liberated state of life, Cha, also, Mayamatram, only illusion, Na, not, Vastuta, in fact, translation, during unconsciousness and consciousness, and between the two, he should try to understand the self and be fully situated in the self. In this way, he should realize that the conditional, and liberated stages of life are only illusory and not actually factual. With such a higher understanding, he should see only the absolute truth pervading everything. Responsibly, please. During unconsciousness and consciousness, and between the two, he should try to understand the self and be fully situated in the self. In this way, he should realize that the conditional and liberated stages of life are only illusory and are not actually factual. With such a higher understanding, he should see only the absolute truth pervading everything. The unconscious state is nothing but ignorance, darkness, or material existence, and in the conscious state one is awake. The marginal state, being between consciousness and unconsciousness, has no permanent existence. Therefore, one who is advanced in understanding the self should understand that unconsciousness and consciousness are but illusions, for they fundamentally do not exist. Only the absolute truth exists. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Mayata tamidam sarvam jagad avakjamurtina matstani sarvabhutani nachaham teshu avashtita. By me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. Everything exists on the basis of Krishna's impersonal feature. Nothing can exist without Krishna. Therefore, the advanced devotee of Krishna can see the Lord everywhere without illusion. Om Jnana Shagananjana Shalakaya Chaksharan Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda Vanchikapa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Paritnam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So this is the behavior of a perfect person, and the perfect person is a sannyasi. He's friendly, he's a well-wisher, he's peaceful, and he's satisfied in the self. So these qualities are described in the Bhagavad Gita also. So not just that it's a superficial change of ashram, but that it's a change of consciousness. When the consciousness is changed, then a person is a sannyasi. Not that because he's walking around naked and doing some external things, that means he's a sannyasi. And then what we're reading here is how people applied and understood the philosophy at the time that the Bhagavatam was being spoken. And then we read Chaitanya Charitamrita, and we read how the devotees are applying the principles, how they're able to have social intercourse in such a way that they're not ostracized or misunderstood. So they behave. When Raghunath Das went to Lord Chaitanya said, stop doing this. You keep running away, you keep acting crazy. Just pretend to be a normal person and be like a parama. You can remember Krishna inside and long for him like anything. But a wife who has a parama, she's even more attentive to her duties than a chaste wife. That way there can be no suspicion. Yesterday I was doing the shops and it was tough. So I came back to the Calvin Grove Museum to take Prashadam. And I just saw Vaisheshik and I thought I'll listen to a few of his things. And he said this really amazing thing, which the latter half of the day was so easy because I just applied this, you know. So he was saying, what causes the problem is when we're looking for something for ourselves. And what solves all the problem is when we decide we just want to give. Then everything flows nicely. And he said, the way that I apply this is, I try to do two things. I try to be systematic and dispassionate. And I thought, wow, that is so good, you know, because we have all these different descriptions showing us what the ideal person is like. And in so many ways we can be thinking, I'm not a perfect person. I behave like this, I behave like that. And that's okay, but what is our attitude? What is our strategy from getting from, you okay there, yeah? You want a pillow? How do we get from A to B? So we get from A to B by being systematic and dispassionate. And then by being like that, it carries us over. Because the nature of devotional service is it is transcendental, but it becomes blocked if there's some selfish desire there, if you're worrying about yourself. It's like being a doctor and you've been given a really strong vaccine and you have to go around and give it to people. And so some of the people aren't that keen in getting the vaccine. They see the big needle and they're like, it's okay, you know. So the doctor could start worrying about himself, thinking, oh, I've got to give this vaccine to so many people, and there's so few of them that want to take it, and I'm trying to convince them it's okay. And he can get really upset himself. Or he can just become systematic and dispassionate. Okay, I'm going to give everyone the opportunity for the vaccine, and those that want to take it can wake up and take it. As long as they don't fall asleep. If they fall asleep, I suppose you could just jab them. Of course, you got back late last night, didn't you? And you just got it from Mangalati? What time did you get back? 10:30. 10:30. Not too bad, then. So being dispassionate and being systematic. We have our duties, we do them very attentively, and we're not concerned about ourselves. And then by doing that, then we become transcendental, and then the activity becomes very pleasurable. And so every day we're challenged, are we going to be transcendental today, or are we going to succumb to the modes of nature? And we're training so that we can become more transcendental and less seduced by the modes of material nature, mode of ignorance, and the mode of passion. And the mode of passion causes the problem of being very result-orientated, and then that ruins the whole mood of bhakti, which is supposed to be selfless and unmotivated. Ahetiki apatiyata. It has to be unmotivated. Then it can be uninterrupted. Because what interrupts it is the motivation. If we don't have a motivation, then we won't have an interruption. So, Srila Prabhupada is saying, the unconscious state is nothing but ignorance, and the conscious state, one is awake. So, first of all, the problem is that we're asleep and we're in ignorance, and then, so that's a really big problem. That's like animal life. Then we become conscious, which is a bit better than being unconscious. And then we have to go from being conscious of what's going on around us to becoming conscious of Krishna. So you can't go from being unconscious to being conscious of Krishna until you become conscious. And that's the mode of goodness. You come up through the mode of ignorance, mode of passion, into the mode of goodness, and then in the mode of goodness, we can approach Krishna, try and be conscious of Krishna. One who is advanced in understanding the self should understand that unconsciousness and consciousness are but illusions, for they fundamentally do not exist. So the soul is super consciousness all the time, and the sleeping and the waking are symptoms of the conditional state. And then Prabhupada quotes 9:4 of the Bhagavad Gita, Maya tatam idam sarvam jagad avyakta murtina. I pervade this entire universe. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. What do you think Krishna means by all beings are in me, but I am not in them? How would you explain? How would you explain that? You could explain what it isn't, what it doesn't mean, and what it does mean. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. Any suggestions?
Hare Krishna Guru.
Hari.
So what I think you might mean is that that Krishna is conscious of every living being, but we are not conscious of everyone. It's like we can be conscious of ourselves, but we try to be conscious of Krishna. But so we can only have like that single point of attention. Krishna can be attentive to everyone, so because he knows what he's a Paramatma in everyone's heart. So so he's present there at all times, but at the same time, he's not interrupting anyone. As like he's just observing.
Any other?
Krishna, all beings are in me and simultaneously I am not in them. As Prabhu said, like Krishna has access to everyone. All beings are in me. He can anytime access to any one of us the way he wants and all, and he knows us in and out. But we need not necessarily know him as he would like us to know him in the sense spiritually, in Krishna conscious sense. Also, one point I believe this is a personally I find a very mystical sloka in Bhagavad Gita. Someone mathematician or physician or with a very scientific bent of mind, let's say, okay, and Krishna is again little bit perhaps playing here that look, all beings are in me, then but I am not in them. So someone may act smart and think, oh, all beings are in Krishna, the sum totality of this pradhan and everything is Krishna. So you sum them up mathematically and then you can access Krishna. But Krishna says no, even if you sum all the total material energy and living entities, beings, although practically impossible, but still if you do it, still I'm out of reach.
I also saw a photograph on Instagram, and it was a picture of a sunflower, and underneath the sunflower, drops of water. Lots of them, lots of drops of water, and they were all like on a waterproof surface, so they were just like globules. And in every globule, you could see the sunflower. Shishikande Taimaya Pashashiki Jai. So just imagine that one sunflower, it's a beautiful bright blue sky, and a sheet of glass, and on the sheet of glass, little blobs of water, and they're all like balls almost because of the cohesive nature of the skin of a drop of water. So it's like a little ball, and in all of these little balls of water, there's the sunflower. You can see the sunflower in them all. So, in one sense, the sunflower is in every glob of water, and in another sense, the sunflower is there on its own. It has nothing to do with the globs of water. And so even though the living entities go through all kinds of struggles and difficulties, Krishna remains aloof, and he's only able to do that if he's renounced. Whereas, he had a parent with all the children, and some of the children were doing crazy things, then the parent would be very upset, very disturbed. Krishna's aloof. And he can maintain that ability to be aloof because he's aware of everything, past, present, and future. So he sees that the living entity right now is only in an illusion, and nobody can stay in the material world forever, permanently. Every living entity will eventually go back to him, and Krishna knows that. So ultimately, he knows he will be the resting place. And they're going through something right now, and ultimately they'll come back to him. Because there's always somebody else falling from the material world, so there's always people in the material world, but nobody stays in the material world forever. And because Krishna comes every day in Lord Brahma, and the whole universe gets liberated, it could be said that the longest you can stay in the material world is one day of Lord Brahma. But we don't say that because then everyone would think, oh, I'm not going to bother washing the pots. I'll be out of here at the end of the day anyway. And for us, a day of Brahma is just like forever, the same as forever, And Lord Brahma, he's sad that he has to be here his entire life, and he sees all the living entities going back all the time, and he has to carry on doing his job. So he has the toughest service to do. But the material world is set up not to keep people here forever, but to take people back. If it was set up to keep people here forever, then we would have Hiranyakashipu. He would be running the universe. Hiranyakashipu, nobody was getting sick, nobody was growing old. It was the season of spring all the time, fruits and flowers all the time, no bad weather, everything just completely 100% geared for sense gratification. Everybody's thinking material world's great. Why go back to the spiritual world? We're fine here. We're getting nice mangoes here. My wife's really pretty and she doesn't grow old. Everyone's okay in the material world. The material world's set up so that you can't find satisfaction here. So all living beings are in me, but I am not in them. So that's Krishna. He is beyond Swarat, means he's beyond the jurisdiction of the material energy. And it seems that Krishna, he agrees to become restricted by the spiritual energy. He allows Mother Yashoda to bind him, and in so many pastimes, he's in a difficult situation. He's trying to meet Srimati Radharani, or he's trying to achieve something, kill a demon, or do something. And it seems like, whereas you would maybe think that, God, he's just sitting there and and everybody wakes up, and then there's a cake, and then he's down at the beach, and then he's on a yacht, and he's flying in a jet, and now he's got the latest iPhone, and it's just anything and everything, but that's not so pleasurable. So instead, Krishna's stealing butter and then running to hide. One time he was with his friends, and they said to this gopi, Mataji, we need butter because there's a great yogi come to Mother Yashoda's house, and we know that your butter is the best. So Mother Yashoda has sent us to you. And it was a complete lie. So the gopi was like really honored. Oh, Mother Yashoda has asked for mine. She goes, okay. And then she brought the ghee back, but she'd mixed it with little sugar chunks. She says, this will be even nicer now, the sage. It will be nice for him. So she gave a big pot. And then all the boys gathered around and they said, wow, that was really good, Krishna. You didn't even have to steal it. You just got her to give us it. Really good. Let's go and run off now and eat it somewhere, And so Krishna says, no, we have to eat it here. Then it will be more relishable outside their door because it's more exciting that way. So all the boys agree and they all start eating it. And because of the sugar lumps inside it, it was making a crunching noise. And the gopi, she can hear this crunching noise. She opens the door and they're all sitting there eating the butter that's supposed to be for the great yogi that's come to see Mother Yashoda. So she gets really angry. And she said, I thought this was for a great Paramahamsa yogi. And one of the boys, one of the really young ones, he was so young that he was just naked. And he was carrying on eating because he wasn't aware what was going on. And Krishna says, look, he is a Paramahamsa yogi, see? So she goes, okay, I'm going to teach you a lesson. She went behind the door to get a stick. And then when she came running around, all the boys had to hide, She's chasing them with a stick. So that's how God enjoys himself. And because he's very carefree, he's our well-wisher, so he ultimately knows we'll come back to him, and he's carefree, he's enjoying. And when we do go back to him, he always says, why did you take so long? I've been missing you, So that's what Krishna's like. And when Gopkumar went back to Krishna, Gopkumar went through a whole epic of events before he went back to Goloka. But when he finally came back, he was saying to all the residents, where is Krishna? And they were like, Krishna? Because in Braj, they don't call him Krishna, they call him Kana. And then one goes, oh, you mean Kana? And then they pointed and there was this cloud of dust just coming up over the horizon. And they said, that's Kana. He's just coming back now with the cows. And then Gopkumar looks and he sees this beautiful sapphire figure. And he realizes, wow, it's Krishna. So he starts running, As he's running, Krishna notices this cowhead boy, and he realizes it's Gop Kamal, and then he starts to run. He leaves all the other cowhead boys, and he's running, and Gop Kamal is running. And as they get closer, they embrace, and they both lose consciousness. They both faint in each other's arms. And then when they come round, Krishna says, "Why did you take so long? I've been waiting for you." So that's what Krishna's like. Very intimate, very personal, very sweet, very loving, and very ordinary. Just very much a person. With Krishna, we're more interested in the Supreme Personality than the Godhead. We just want the Supreme Personality. It's just like so amazingly, just like the most normal boy, and at the same time the most unusual boy. It's a little bit like, there's a place I went yesterday, it's called Extraordinary. And it's an interesting word because extraordinary means anything but ordinary. But the word's broken down into extraordinary. That's what Krishna's like. He's extraordinary. He's just like a normal boy, you know. But at the same time, he's so extraordinary. And he likes to be like that. Because if he was just being God all the time, you know, and you're going up to him and you're a speck in a universe that just came out of a pore of his skin, you know, well, how can you interact? You know, his big toe is 10 billion miles wide, you know. And you, hello, Krishna. Haribol. It's like this massive person. So Krishna just comes down and he's the same size. And he gets afraid. And Rupa Goswami, they're saying, well, if Krishna's God, then why is he afraid when Mother Yashoda is chasing him? Why is the kajal coming down his cheeks? If he's God, why is he afraid? Doesn't this diminish his position as God? On the other hand, if he knows he's God and he's crying, then he's just pretending, then that diminishes his position as a person. Oh, he's running around like a cowhead boy, but he's just pretending to cry. He's not really afraid. So Rupa Goswami says this is Krishna's Achinta Shakti, inconceivable. He's simultaneously aware that he's God and not aware. So he's afraid at the same time. He's afraid of Mother Yashoda because Mother Yashoda's chastised him before, but she's never picked up a stick. This is the first time. So he knows it's serious. She's got a stick in her hand and he's frightened. So he's running. He's crying. And then she sees how much he's upset and she thinks, this kid's getting too scared now. So she puts the stick down. That's a chinta. It's inconceivable. He's simultaneously aware and not aware. He chooses not to be aware to facilitate the pastime. Interesting, yeah? There's quite a few places in the Bhagavatam where the devotee sees, he gets darshan of Krishna, and he's so overwhelmed he can't say anything at first, and Krishna has to empower, and then he can start to speak and glorify, because the darshan is so overwhelming, you know. And Krishna says to Arjuna, once again become undisturbed. He shows him his universal form, and then he goes, once again become undisturbed. I've shown this horrifying feature of mine, but now I want to restore you back to this loving relationship again. And then when Krishna goes back to being first of all Narayan and then Krishna, and Arjuna's like, wow, you're so beautiful. And he says, even the demigods can't see this form of mine. It's very rare, very special. So Krishna wants to allow us access, but we have to get there through knowledge. We have to build up our knowledge first of all. Once we have awe and reverence, then we can give it up. But if you think, well, I think I'll just go straight for Krishna and not even bother with the awe and reverence, then that'll save me the time, because I'm going to have to give up the awe and reverence anyway. So I won't bother getting the awe and reverence. I'll just go straight to Krishna. But you have to get the awe and reverence first, then give it up, and then approach Krishna. So we have to build up our awe and reverence right now. Yes.
Oh, I have to serve breakfast. Can I quickly ask a question? So, in the description of this chapter, the second paragraph, last sentence says that he travels, although fully learned, he should remain always silent, like a dumb person, and travel like a restless child. What is this analogy like with travel like a restless child?
Is that text 3?
No, no, it's in the description, Prabhu. Description of the chapter before
Oh, yeah.
text 1.
Okay.
And second paragraph, last sentence.
Yeah. Although fully learned, he should always remain silent, like a dumb person, and travel like a restless child. And what's the problem with that?
What does it mean, travel like a restless child?
Well, it reminds me that Prabhupada said, "Don't be like me." He said, "An old man can go anywhere and say anything, like a child, and nobody will say anything." So he said, "Don't do it like me. Don't do what I do," because Prabhupada could get away with saying the most rudest things to people. He would say, "You are a cheater. You're not a teacher." And then the devotee tries it and ends up getting in a fight. But when Prabhupada says that they're charmed, so if it's an old man or a child, you can go anywhere and you can say anything. Oh, it's just a little boy. Oh, he just called me a cheater, naughty boy. So like a restless child. And the sannyasis were supposed to be seen like that by the grihastas. Grihastas see the brahmacharis and the sannyasis as ones that they need to take care of. So it was a very loving culture, like a real family feel to it. Nobody was there wasn't like somebody that was a homeless guy and he was begging and nobody knows who it is and they don't care if he was to drop dead. He's just a nobody anyway. Such a cruel and impersonal society that we live in. Well, the Vedic culture was very personal, very loving, very caring, So the sannyasi was seen like that, like a restless child. So he was given facility and food and offered alms. And then that system was abused, unfortunately. People started doing it as their livelihood. So I'm not sure today whether we fast if we're out in Sankirtan. Maybe check with the powers that be. Okay, I'll finish there. ISKCON Vidavinda ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Premanandi, Haribol. All of you, ki jai.